in our region to help them get access to grant funding for their projects, to, financing, and also helps with just a whole bunch of other project related work. So I talk to David pretty frequently on projects in other towns in our region, and mentioned to him that I was working with you all on, what might be in your housing plan. And he mentioned some projects he's worked on in the town, or that he's been involved with over time. So I just thought he might have some ideas to share with us as well. So I invited him to the meeting today.
Let me just comment that, having worked with David, we've got multiple projects here in Winchester. His expertise is I don't want to go begging on you. If you need to know, I'm just very pleased that he's been able to.
We heard most of that, Bob, but not all of it.
Yeah, that sounded very important, though.
Sounded very kind too. So I certainly heard enough to know that.
So I think our tasks, I am going to try to, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, I think, today. And if it's okay, I'm going to try to sort of hone us in on, again, talking through what some of these goals and strategies specifically might be to include in your housing plan. I did send around a document that, if it's okay, maybe I'll screen share it, but I think you all have it to try to summarize some of the housing needs that we've heard about through the survey, and some comments that the committee received at the informational meeting that was held, and then really starting to brainstorm together what you want to focus on in your housing plan, and what some of the projects might be that you could include. So is it okay? Is it okay with you guys if we kind of use that document as a starting point for discussion, or do you want to start somewhere else?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Works for me.
All right. Let's see here. So again, hopefully you got a chance to sort of look through this a little bit, but I just tried to summarize in one place some of the things that we heard about, like the need, the older housing stock that you have, and needs around rehabilitation, comments that were received around blighted properties, senior housing needs, rental housing for young families and young adults. Again, these are all things that were in the survey results. And then a lot of interesting feedback from community college students about how many of them would love to live in the town of Winchester if those housing options were available to them. I put some of the worker survey responses that we've gotten so far in here in terms of what workers would like. And then just kind of, again, copied the main summary points from that housing data analysis in here so that we'd have it all in one place. One updated data point, I did look at what the 2020 census shows in terms of vacant housing units in the town. And I just feel like this is really interesting. It says that 14% of your housing stock is vacant. I know some of those are probably seasonal homes, but I wonder how many of these are in some of the buildings that people seem to be interested in reutilizing for housing. Um, so I'm just going to skip down to these suggested goals and strategies. Again, what I'm hoping we can do today is just kind of throw out there ideas, shoot down the ones that make no sense, and then figure out what information we would need to have on these potential projects or ideas between now and the next meeting so that we can kind of flesh them out a little bit more and decide what to keep and what not to keep. Is that okay? Or does anybody, does anyone want to throw something out?
Can I just
Should we
make a statement? That first page is saying 40%, again, I'm a realtor, so
Yeah.
46% are asking for a first time, the town to provide, let me see, where was it saying? First time home buyer options to allow renters to purchase their first home. It's already in place. You can call USDA without advertising certain mortgage companies. You can do CHFA. There's so many programs that you could buy a house for 100% down. Is there a way that we can, and those are government programs, is there a way we can link that in somehow?
Yeah, and that's why, so when we get down to that, that goal, this creating first-time home buyer options, like the first thing was increasing awareness about the programs that already exist. Because that is often something, sometimes, like you're saying, you don't have to create something new. You just need to direct people to the resources that are there. So yes, I completely agree with you. And we should talk about opportunities to increase awareness about existing resources for addressing some of these things. And yeah, it's like, because a lot of it is an awareness issue. All right, I'm just going to back up. Again, we heard a lot about interest in reuse or redevelopment of mill buildings and vacant properties. I'm sure you all have heard a lot about interest in that, and we know that there are a lot of challenges as well. But I'm just, again, brainstorming here. And I know a lot of this, I don't want to pretend like I think you guys the town hasn't already done many of these things. I just want to, as a starting point for discussion about like what we can do moving forward. Are there any specific, mill building properties or underutilized properties that you all know of that would be worth looking into for, utilizing for housing? I put the old Winstead Hospital in here because it's been thrown out to me. I had a brief conversation about that idea with Bob, with Bob Geiger. What was that, yesterday, day before?
Yes.
Do you want to share your opinions about that one?
Okay, well, I can just tell you historically, having been on that hospital board about 30 years ago, the building itself, the old original hospital building, is not a very large piece of real estate, but it's in very, very poor condition. The addition that was put on, I believe, in the 60s, has got some potential for rehabilitation, but in most cases, I have found in the investigations, it's cheaper to tear these down and start from scratch than to try to rehab some of these buildings because of their age and the planning, zoning, and building construction requirements. That building is problematic from a political point of view. It might be possible to get the organization that controls it now. It's a 501c3, which was formed basically by Ralph Nader. Ralph kind of controls all the decision-making that goes on with the existence of that building and its future. I think that building's problematic. If I were to look at places to renovate or redo, that would not be high on my list for all the complexities and problematic issues that accompany it. But just throwing that out there. It's not in great shape. The town would love to keep the old hospital just because it's almost historical, but the additions that were put onto it are really are not really good. Could be done, but it's an expensive rehab.
Okay. Any other?
Jocelyn, can I just add to that?
Yep.
Yes, Bob, I agree with what you said. I've been through both of those buildings as well as a bunch of others. You just hit on one of the realities of affordable housing is those are the things we have as opportunities. And if it's hard, that doesn't mean we can't do it. It's just more of a challenge. But we should leave it on the table for now.
Okay, sure.
Bob, when we talked, you did talk about one other potential property that the town might have available to it in the future. Do you want
The old
to?
nursing home.
No, I was thinking about the school.
Oh, the old, okay, our old, at some point in time, our old primary elementary school, which is way up on the edge of town outside on the hill there, is going to be evacuated with the final construction of the Hollowbird School. So that building will end up being taken back by the town. Well, the town owns all the buildings anyway, but that one will be no longer used as a school. That's had many additions, but there's if you look on the on the field cards, the lot looks like it's large, but most of it's really unbuildable. But the existing building, there might be components of that could be rehab, but it's definitely going to be a building site at some point in time, whether it's rehab or partially new construction, or but I don't know how it's best used. That has to be assessed, but that'll probably be 2 years before that's really available. But there's a site there.
Where are we talking? Bachelor School?
Bachelor.
Oh.
Bachelor will be shut down. Josh, you're probably more tuned into some of that maybe because we don't have Melanie here on the call, but I mean, the whole intent was to redo Hollowbird and get rid of that up there because it's a tough location to get school buses to, plow snow. And it's just a very old facility with a lot of additions.
Absolutely. And by all accounts, so long as there are no other issues with construction, there have been a couple hiccups that have popped up due to the current supply chain. As long as the Hinsdale School comes online on time, the Bachelor School would be vacated as early as September. And at that point in time, it would come back under town control, and the town would be able to make some moves to try and get some kind of new development in there, whether it's affordable housing or otherwise. But I think affordable housing's a great use. It's a great spot for it.
Yeah.
Great.
There's also Laurel Healthcare on 108 East Lake Street. It was a former nursing home that hasn't been open since when, I don't know, mid 2000s, and it's in private hands right now in a 501c3, and there's been no indication what their plans are for it.
Is that one that's near the lake?
Yeah.
Yep, but
Okay.
They all need work, Bob. They all need work.
Oh, I'm so used to rehabbing old buildings for my career that it just sometimes, like I said, it's just cheaper to start over. But you're right. There's some that might have more value than others.
What is the intention of the 10 Bridge Street crew?
Josh?
10 Bridge Street, I honestly, I couldn't tell you what their hope for the final, highest use is. But I do know there are 7 owners. They are currently doing their best, and I believe that we're going to put an application forward for some brownfield money from the state. That's an application we already put forward in round 14. It was denied because they were really looking for projects that were ready for remediation work to be done. And this next round is specifically for projects that are really in more of a planning phase. So that's where we are with 10 Bridge Street. Phase 2 evaluation hasn't yet been done. So the request is going to be to the state to fund that phase 2 evaluation. Once that's completed, I think they're going to have a better idea of the state of the building. I don't think that between the 7 of them, they have the ability to invest in that building themselves. I think they're going to be looking to market it to a different developer who could make something happen. I know Pam and I had a couple conversations about what's permitted there, and I think it might be a little bit more lenient than we thought before, what might be allowed in that space. And Pam, you might be able to touch on that. But in general, I think they're going to be looking, once that evaluation's done, they're going to be looking for a developer to come in and make some changes.
Mark, there was no, Mark's there, right? Yeah. We've talked about this, and there would be nothing, as far as you recall, that would prevent them from having residential in there.
No,
Right?
it was,
What did
actually planning and zoning had approved a site plan before to have residential apartments in there.
All right. The brownfields, is that this brownfield area-wide revitalization grant program that you're going to apply to, Josh?
Yep.
This one down here. Okay.
Oh, my apologies. I actually don't think that
Oh.
is the program that we're looking at. It's round 15. Let me find the actual, let me find the specific title for you. I'll get back to you in just a minute.
No, that's okay. I just wondered whether you guys were putting anything in for these programs that are opening up soon.
I think Ted and I had touched base about the community-wide or the area-wide revitalization planning grant. I think that it would be a good thing for us to do. And actually, it's the one right above it. I missed it, but the municipal grant assessment only program is what we'd be applying to for
Okay.
10 Bridge Street. And then, Ted and I are thinking right now, if we have the capacity, the administrative capacity to take on that work, it would be great to apply for the area-wide revitalization planning grant too.
Okay.
I'm not really, I haven't looked too deeply into that. We might be looking for some guidance, Jocelyn, but any money we can find to help move some of these buildings in the right direction is what we need. And this is exactly what it's for.
Agreed. All right, terrific. Any other mill buildings, vacant properties that we should add to a list of possibilities?
Did we already touch on the area up on Wallens Hill, just in terms of vacant spaces?
No, we did not.
The town owns a parcel of land. It's not all of it's buildable, but I believe the total parcel is about 120 acres, somewhere in that ballpark. And there was once a housing development planned up there. There's already road that's been put in. I believe that water and sewer at least runs up to the property line, if isn't actually extended all the way through. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think that would be a great place to try and get greater development.
Okay.
Is that, I don't know, I'm not familiar with exactly where that is, but is it walkable?
Yes. You mean to town? No,
Is it on a
not really.
bus route?
It's not on a bus route. It's pretty steep hill. It's a
It
very
sits up
steep
above
hill.
the sewer plant. Isn't that right, Bob? You're kind of on the hill up above that.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's above, it's way up on top. It's kind of
Okay.
it started out being a housing complex. There were 2 or 3 of them built, and I tore all 3 of them down. I had them all torn down. And when they fell into, they got caught in the economic bubble there.
It's on the top of Wallens Hill and Wallens Street, right at the top up there.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain where that is. When someone says it's walkable, I wouldn't consider that walkable.
No, like I think the kids would get a bus ride to school, if that's what you're asking, Katie.
Wondering about, walking distance to town.
No,
Okay.
Not realistically.
All right. And then this other, again, in terms of older properties and possibilities for rehab. I don't know if Candy, I didn't see if Candy was with us today. But Todd, maybe you know, does the town have an existing, or Josh, maybe you know too, does the town have an existing housing rehab loan program that's just out of money?
I don't believe that we do.
Are you talking about small cities?
Yeah.
Small cities grant, yeah.
We have it.
Oh, we do, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we talked about that very briefly at the last meeting. And that program.
We have, the fund has grown. I think that our former finance director, Bruce Strafford, was waiting until it was like over 100 grand, had been repaid. And I want to say we're probably about there now.
Okay, so you have some money in there. And he was waiting for that before.
Because of the management of it, like that it had to make sense because of the advertising requirements and the administration of it.
Yeah.
And not to wave any dirty laundry, but for a number of years, that had not been managed properly and we lost control. And, those were supposed to be paid back when the house was eventually sold or refied, and it didn't happen on many of them. And so Bruce tried to collect as much money as we could to restore the fund, but I think it started out at, a multiple of that. But I think what we have now is probably going to be about the end, I'd guess, Pam, in terms of how much more we're going to collect.
No, like within the last 6 months, we got a payoff of like 45 or 50 grand, like something that had been sitting there for over 30 years. Yeah. And, the property, either the person had passed away or they were finally refinancing and, going to pay that back. And
yeah, well, Bruce did a good job as they chased it. They were trying to chase every one of them. So good.
He tracked it all down, right? That was part of the smelly socks, dirty laundry.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't there also
Also,
a small cities block grant coming up that Josh, that you and I have talked about?
yeah.
And I think
So there's
Ken and
another
I-
round of small cities coming up.
Okay.
And you could, in theory, and again, David Berto knows about this and what other towns have used it for as well. But, you could, in theory, apply for additional funding to add to that. That would make it, again, more worthwhile, because there is, as Pam pointed out, costs involved in a program like that in terms of administering it and doing the work that needs to be done to lend that out to income eligible homeowners. David, do you want to talk quickly about some of the other uses of CDBG?
Sure. I want to just very quickly go back to Wallen Street as well, because I see that's next to Florence Street. Many years ago, the town owned a bunch of lots on Florence Street. Do they still own those?
Yes, I think there's still one or two, not a lot, but they might be large enough for something. Josh, you'd have to look it up. Yeah.
They do.
We could do some legwork to figure that out.
Yeah, but the town owns, I don't know how big they are, but the town still has them.
Yeah, there was probably half a dozen single family lots up there or so.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's worth putting on a list. But as far as a CDBG is concerned, if you are interested in a CDBG potential application this year, and as Jocelyn said, that might be a good thing for housing rehab, because frankly, you have a lot of property in town that could use housing rehab, and this could be very valuable everywhere. There is a kickoff meeting next Wednesday, the 15th. I think it's from 9 till 1. All the towns probably got an invite to that. If you're interested in potentially applying, somebody from the town needs to sign up and attend.
Yeah, we did that. They did that, David.
Okay, good.
Yep.
We will learn more at that meeting possibly about the priorities for the funding for this year. They can be for rehab of housing. They can be for acquisition, but mostly rehab. You have got a lot of opportunities for rehab, whether it's program income like this for housing rehab or other opportunities. We don't really know what the priorities are going to be, but
Right.
in your area, last year, folks that got funding included Plymouth and Kent and Norfolk. So there's a possibility to get some funding if it is aligning with what you want. But I do think you've got a lot of opportunities with a lot of older housing to take some advantage of CDBG money.
So it's worth them attending that meeting and seeing if Department of Housing gives any clues as to what priorities they might have for this year's round.
Yes, we're all going to learn this together as best we can, and then decisions can be made after that.
Yeah,
I'm signed up. I'm set to go for that.
Great.
great. All right. So the next thing, again, that we heard a lot about was affordable options for young adults and college students, specifically in the downtown area. And again, this is something that the town's plan of conservation and development talked about a lot too. And just looking for any ideas that this group has on how that we could sort of push that ball up the hill. I mean, obviously some of those properties that we talked about, maybe 10 Bridge Street might be a good property for that. I don't know, just looking for any thoughts you guys have about downtown area properties, or whether, I mean, is there any chance that the college has underutilized buildings that, we could partner with them? I'm just throwing ideas out there.
At the informational meeting the other night, didn't George mention a building near the college? I thought he mentioned a mill building near the college, and I wasn't.
I think he's talking about Ralph Nader's
Ralph's.
building on the corner,
Oh,
across from
yeah.
Dairy Queen, that big
Right,
one.
right.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
there's the other building that is on the opposite corner, that the corner of Park Avenue and Main Street. I think what's above there now, the last thing was Northwest, the sporting goods store. That has changed hands. That was Neil Hunt, and he passed away. And so it's been sold to, someone who owns a landlord who happens to, an investor who owns several, probably, 100 rental units. And that was a boarding house, which, means that they had shared common bathroom. And so I guess what we've learned is that they're renovating those units to go from being just boarding rooms to 1-bedroom units.
Oh, that's nice.
What do you happen to know the property address on that?
That is 58 Main Street.
Pam, is there what are they gonna, do you know, like any indication of like what they're gonna price those apartments to start at?
No.
Do you think it's gonna start around this range, the 650 to 999?
No, absolutely not. He's already told me that the whole plan is to remove those 650, 750 rents and bring in higher rent.
Yeah, but is higher mean 1,000?
It's my impression, 900 to 1,000.
Sorry, and again, sorry for joining late. Was just finishing up a work meeting. Katie, is there like a sense that like there's gonna be more and more of these like investors coming in, purchasing some of these old buildings and like renovating apartments to build more luxury or just higher priced apartments in general?
No, they come in and they don't, right, Bob?
We've got, I tore down 23 buildings. If I could, I'd tear down another 25. and I hate to be the naysayer here, but keeping these, and I use the word slumlords intentionally. These people have been renovating these buildings and overcharging these poor people that have to live there. And it
Yeah.
really bothers me.
Yeah.
Well, they're
So-
not necessarily overcharging them. They're not fixing their apartments. I mean, for $500, you can get a nice shithole.
No, yeah, and they're charging more than that for some of them. And I think
So-
Mark knows that we've had to take the owners of one of them and put them in handcuffs. I mean, some of these buildings, and Linda Grappo knows that she's seen what we put up with some of those people.
Yeah.
So,
So just an idea, just to throw it out there, right? Could we create like an affordability requirement, like say 10% of your units that you build would have to be dedicated towards affordable housing? So if you
No,
build 10
that's
units,
what
at
that-
least one of them.
No, that's what that state does, because we have close to 11%. That's a requirement that's necessary in other communities that don't have 10% affordable
No,
housing.
I know 830G, right? But not outside of 830G, just locally, right? So if you're an investor and you're going to, so let's say 58 Main Street, right? They purchased 58 Main Street. There's 10 units in there. Could there be a local requirement that investors that come in to buy these properties and renovate them have to dedicate, let's say 10% or some benchmark number of those units to be affordable?
I don't know how you control the private market. Josh, have you ever heard of an ordinance like that?
I haven't
I
heard of
have.
an ordinance like that, but I know there are fair rent commission ordinances that could be adopted that can help to temper some costs.
Or can we dangle a carrot in front of them with some grant money and say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 to help your renovations, but you have to have a certain amount of them to be in a certain price range or rental range?
If we had more money to give in grants.
again,
Some of the small cities money be able to go to that?
not to those
Yeah.
guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
Just for folks' information, they've, so this is Birchwater, AKA Impetus, AKA 5 other different LLCs, which is fine, but their approach right now, I finally have been able to develop a working relationship with them. And their approach right now is to actually fix up and renovate some of these houses and apartments and make them nice and get between $1,100 and $1,300 a month rent. So that's their goal. With this 58 Main Street, I was able to strike a deal with them that they would contribute financially towards the relocation of the people they're evicting. And that they would not follow through with a legal eviction on the people's credit history. So it's really quite a disastrous mess when this happens. So I do think they're making an effort. Time will tell if they're going to follow through with it.
I worked with them for 5 years and I saw no evidence of them really trying to do anything that improves any neighborhood or any building beyond what they have to do to comply with Mark and collect their rent. Those are not
Well,
the
they don't
people
even do
that.
that.
Those, yeah,
None of their
those aren't,
buildings are in
those aren't
compliance.
none of their buildings are a benefit to our town. Those aren't the kind of people, I can say that now that I'm not the town manager. Sorry, Josh, but those are not the kind of people I want to work with on trying to develop affordable housing.
And to follow up on Bob's point, right? Like them saying, "Oh, we're not going to put like a credit knock for evicting you because we purchased the building," is the bare minimum of what a person could do for another person, right? I think thank you, you're welcome. Like we just didn't put it on your credit history of us buying a building and kicking you out of it. So
They're also given,
Katie, for my information, can you just tell me again what the name of the investor group is?
it's Birchwater Management.
or Impetus, IMPETUS. They have several different entities.
How many total units, Pam, would you say they owed in town? Well over 100.
Oh, well, yeah.
They just bought 4 more that I've worked with people to get into houses.
Are these New Yorkers, out of state people?
Yes,
No.
he is. No, the owner.
Yeah, the
Major
owner.
Major owner from Impetus. He's got a local management company. They've even got an office. So those are the front people that are running the LLCs.
I have to say, I'm pleased with the fact that they were willing to give these folks that are being evicted $750 towards relocation. I feel that that's a step in the right direction. They've certainly not done that, nor did the person at the trailer park do that.
Oh, no, I think you did a really great job advocating for those people. And, I really appreciate all the work that you do for.
Yeah, I have to say that's a great job
Yeah.
advocating for them with a guy that's a slumlord. Nice job.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think Katie, you did a really great job. And, maybe this is like too broad for this one conversation we're having, right? But might also for like young people having like an advocate at town hall that like can help them with understand these laws might be something that we should need going forward, right? Like having Katie there or just some sort of advocate to let folks know their options is definitely like needed, right?
Well, I think, and I think Jocelyn has it further on in her notes, but a fair rent commission is definitely needed to control people like this.
That's good.
And yeah, and we own so much property at this point, and there's somebody else that Pam and Mark and I were working with down on North Main Street that was also from out of state. So there's a group of them, and there's a fair rent commission would be a really good way to hold them accountable.
I'm wondering what the building department is doing to inspect these units, the one on Main Street that's being renovated, as far as it's going to be improved. What are they monitoring the improvements?
Yeah, Linda, they haven't come in for any permits yet. They're still in the phases of, because they're gonna have to get architects and everything to come in with drawings. So they're in that process of working with architects and everything.
But go look behind their building. The back of their building is still filled with trash, old toilets, refrigerators, and they've had that building long enough to have a truck come in and clear that out of there. They're not neat people.
Can we slap him with a blight order?
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
It's out of sight. It's right on that verge where Mark would have a hard time calling it blight. It has to be visible, but if it's all you have to do is stick your head around the corner there, and it's, the people next door have complained, and it's the building is just filthy.
Hey, Katie, how long have they had it empty though? Like it could be that, did the tenants just move?
Only one has moved out so far.
What's that?
Only one has moved so far.
Oh, so he's still
Yeah,
fully
this
occupied.
This all just came down last week.
All right, I'm just gonna move through this a little more.
Sorry, Jess.
No, not at all. This is all very good information, a very good discussion. I'm just gonna keep going through, and again, I think the kinds of ideas that you guys are talking about are exactly what we should be talking about. So in terms of first-time homebuyer options, we did touch on this. There are programs available that we could, in the housing plan, just continue to increase awareness of folks about, including CHAFA and other programs. You do have 92 homeowners already in town that are taking advantage of that. Other than that, obviously, something other towns do is encourage private giving potentially of land or funding either to a habitat chapter or to some other nonprofit in the town who would be willing to build first-time home buyer type homes. Josh, I don't know what you are thinking in terms of the possibilities for the Wallens Hill property, if you think it's worth exploring rental, ownership, a mix of both. So I'm just throwing out there whether there are any kind of specific sites that you all could think of that would lend themselves to building new first-time home buyer options.
Out of all of those, to answer your question, Jocelyn, out of all of the options that we listed before, with revitalized buildings or new lots, I think that's the area that has the that would lend itself best to have homes for purchase. First-time home buyers is really what I imagine there. At the Wallen Hill site, I should say, because some of the other places, we talked about 10 Bridge Street might be able to have apartments, but those are apartments. Those aren't single family homes. And that just has so much space up there with, again, the 120, 130 acres, that I think that's probably the highest best use of that space, to try and get some single family homes in there that are priced so that they can be purchased by first time home buyers. And that's what I'd want to do. I have spoken with the selectmen already about the possibility of going out to the market to get some offers on that site to see if there's anybody interested in making a development. So I would want this group and Jocelyn, your input on what needs to go into that RFP.
Do we have actual affordable housing houses like Torrington does, where they lease the land so that the town has their hands on the deed and they dictate what the houses sell for, and it's only for a certain, they have specific criteria?
I think we should talk about those possibilities. Yeah,
that Wallens Hill area would be perfect for that.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing that came up in terms at the informational meeting was whether there were properties in town that the town now owns. I think they said because of foreclosure, that could be utilized for this. Are there a number of those, or?
Our general practice with the blighted homes is usually they're not in condition to remain standing. So most of those have been demolished at this point in time through that foreclosure process.
Would they be sites that could be rebuilt on?
Some of them, yes. I think in other cases, there's a desire. For example, we own a few lots that are up closer to the lake. For conservation purposes, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to build up there. And there are some other neighborhoods where it's so dense with housing that it would probably be nice to have this parcel sold off to a neighboring property for a yard or green space of some kind. I've been talking with a lot of staff members about what each of those parcels should look like, but I think some of them probably can be sold off for some single family or even multifamily home development.
Okay.
Yes, I have two quick questions.
Was that the question?
Never mind, my dog took over.
Okay.
All right. There's so housing options for seniors. These are just some thoughts. Katie did send me the example of what's it called? Clockmakers. Which I wasn't aware of. That's sort of an interesting development, 55 plus. I don't know if the town would be interested in, oh yeah, somebody brought up Cider Mill Crossing. Maybe they didn't know about Clockmakers. Whether the town would be interested in encouraging, again, a private developer to do another development like that.
Those are not affordable, just so you know, when they come up for sale. So if you're looking at affordable housing, they're not.
No, true. I mean, and again, we can focus this plan on just affordable housing, or we can make it broader in terms of other housing needs that we heard about that the town might have. So that's really up to the committee in terms of whether you want to have strategies in here that create housing options, but not necessarily affordable.
I mean, Clockmakers does sound like they're attached units, right? So they're, again, kind of what I think of as more affordable by nature than like a single family 3-bedroom home on an acre. But yeah, those can go for a fair amount as well. Any other thoughts on the senior housing options, ideas? Hearing none.
Wait. I wonder, because of the waiting list, and I'd love to hear what Jane has to say about this, but I mean, one of the things that was brought up, I don't remember if it was at the meeting or through the surveys, was, more of what we have for senior housing.
Let me ask a question on that. I saw that survey. It said they were between WHA, Winstead Housing Authority, and Winstead Housing Development Corporation. I've only got 31 on the wait list. So I can't believe Jane's got that many. I don't know where that number came from, but so I've got, I've only got one open unit in Carriage Maker Place, and I've got 2 right now, and they're only open because we're refurbing them. But the wait list is 31 at, for instance, at Laurel Commons, and 2 who they'll take either building. And I got 2 specifically, only want Carriage Maker Place, but I've got 31 on that list. And so that was a big number. So I can't believe Winstead Housing Authority has, I don't know how many that total number was, but there is still a demand out there. But, they've all got income restrictions, which makes it difficult for most people. And even though they're 55 plus, the average age, is closer to mid 70s in those places, or 80s. But just an idea. But Winstead Housing Development Corporation was designed for some affordable, some full rent. And David Berto knows fully well the details. He was far more involved than I was in the origination. But there's certainly demand. But
And I did ask you, Bob, when we talked, whether there was any possibility of adding units to either of the properties that you guys manage.
We're out of space when those look. That's, well, you brought up the Florence Street. That was the next group that we were going to look at when I first came in, to build another complex there on Florence Street. But when I came in, the financially we were in such dire straits, there was no way that we had any appetite to start another facility. As you know, these things run very tight. They're not profitable. You're running hand to mouth constantly. And so, but I don't know if there could be someone else that would be interested in doing that. But there you got HUD money, private investor tax investment, tax credit people. There's all kinds of financing resources to do these things. But at the time that Carriage Maker was built, there was huge town resistance. They did not want any more senior housing. So I don't think the taste for that is now. So, but half of that's not affordable. I mean, we've got 25% units, 25, 50, 60, 80s, and 100s. Laurel Commons only goes at 25, 60, and 25, 50, and 60 units. So they're more affordable, if you would. But there's demand.
Carriage Maker and Laurel Commons are more mixed unit populations in terms of income.
Exactly.
Winchester Housing is just low income. So I believe that's why our waiting lists are so high. They cannot make over a certain amount of income in order to qualify for our housing.
And we have a lot of people that meet that.
Yeah.
And Chestnut Grove, for instance, federally subsidized, the utilities are included.
Right.
So that's also a draw for people for affordable housing.
Okay. Just so like Carriage Maker Place, they're also all included. The only thing the tenant pays is the electric utility, and then there are subsidies, energy subsidies on every apartment
But are the rents subsidized?
No, they have to meet, well, we've got, I think, 13 in Carriage Maker Place that are on some sort of government supported housing. I think we've got 7 or 8 in Laurel Commons. Therefore, those are subsidized. But when I say we've got a 25% unit, I mean, those are people, those apartments are probably renting for normally $400 a month. But there are low income units. Matter of fact, but when
ours are 100% low income. That's
Okay.
why I believe
Yeah.
our waiting list is much longer.
Okay, oh, for sure, that would certainly affect that. We at Laurel Commons, we've got 13 units which are low income. In other words, you can't make more than 25% of the state average, and 14 units you can't make more than 50%. So those 27 units out of 44 would probably qualify for affordable, but anything above that isn't.
Right.
And Jane, is the Winchester Housing Authority interested in or able to consider